Slow down, slow down. Just okay. I think you're okay. Yeah. So it's totally normal to see a lot of things that you don't know or recognize it. Well, it seems real because it is real, at least at one point in time. Why don't we talk about some of the things that you saw? And you're gonna need all the help, certainly, that I can give you, and understanding the culture if you're going to survive. Yes, let me note that. Okay. Yeah, so you are at a time period of 16th century Japan. It's called the Azukimomo Yama period, and this is an artsy period, but it's also very, very war-torn. There's a lot of battles going on. A very oppressive time to be alive. The ruler's name is Oda Nobunaga. There we go. Oda Nobunaga. So much to remember. And he united all of feudal Japan, which sounds great, but unfortunately, he united them by exiling and mercilessly killing everybody to do so. So you're going to see a lot of sophisticated arts based on the fact that now you have this unification of Japan, but you're also going to see a lot of wars and samurai doing the bidding. So that's, you mentioned a woman with the D. What does she look like? Oh, that's called a geisha. So geishas were entertainers. Now, I think most people, especially viewed by Western lenses, tend to think entertaining means like prostitutes. They're not. If you go up and ask a geisha how much, it's an insult. Don't do that. A geisha, actually, the first ones were men, and they were jesters, entertainers. And then when women started becoming geishas, then nothing but women were geishas. And restaurants and different bars would partner with geishas, and they would bring in these geishas to come in and entertain individuals with a lot of money. So geishas would be trained to sing, tell jokes, dance, and they look the way they do to stand out from other women. There's a very hard process to become a geisha, and it typically involves years and years of training, and you can tell the geishas in training because they wear a brighter kimono, which is their clothing, and their hair is typically a little bit more fancy than a full-fledged geisha. But yes, you're going to be seeing probably quite a few of those. It's still a thing in Japan, but Japan has mostly moved on to modern things, not as much in the realm of history. What else did you see? Yeah. Oh, that can only be sumo wrestlers. Yeah. Sumo wrestlers. It's still a thing. In fact, today they still have the same rules. They have to have the traditional top knot, which is also going to be on all of the samurai that you're going to see and probably kill in the process. And these sumo wrestlers are going to be very large, at least compared to the normal Japanese person. And in sumo, there's no weight classes, so you see people get very large, not wear a lot of clothes. They're called rikishi, or rikshi, as you say it with the dialect, and they're celebrities in Japan. Yes, yeah. Well, they have a couple different tournaments called yushos, and they'll have tournaments for entertainment, for rival clans to determine different problems and resolve them, hopefully peacefully, through sumo. missions. Now, let's talk about your missions and the type of people that you're going to be going up against. I mentioned it before. Oda Nobunaga, warlord. This is during the time that he was trying to invade Korea as well as China, and it was a very war-torn country. He was the first general, emperor, shogun, whatever you want to call him, to utilize firearms. Be on the lookout for the firearms. That was definitely a bit of a game changer and certainly helped them when they went against the Chinese and the Koreans. Watch out for that. So, he unified Japan through very bloody reign, and samurai often viewed as noble. You will probably have quite a different opinion of samurai once you experience it through your ancestors' eyes. Japan was built on a class system, and you were either from the ruling class, the working class, or the peasant class, and of course there's a couple more other than those, but that's an example. The ruling class ruled, the soldier class, the samurai class, very regal. Everyone other than those ones were hot garbage, at least in those two classes' eyes. Unfortunately, there was no way to change your class or be better. And this is what you're going to find with your ancestors as well. So, the samurai, very oppressive, because they did not see those in lower classes as being equal. They were very, very cruel. They would beat up peasants just for fun, burn villages, kill people. When you would have missionaries come in, the samurai would martyr them and kill them. Of course, you're coming in at a decent time when Westerners were a little bit more valued. Just understand, these people, they don't like change. So, you're going to be going against several samurai leaders and heads of their clan. They're going to be probably in groups protected by other samurai warriors. Now, being that you have experience in the ninjutsu and a certain amount of secrecy is going to help you, because one of the last things that you're going to want to do is engage these samurais head on. They are incredibly well trained. This is what they do, and they do it well. Let's go over some of the samurai weapons, so you need to know what to look out for. As I already said, you might see some individuals with guns in Oda Nobunaga's army, but you're also going to see some of these traditional weapons. Now, no samurai would use a sword in battle. In fact, nobody would typically use a sword in battle. They'd use a spear. They would use a bow and arrow. And so, definitely be on the lookout for those. You might find it particularly challenging in closing that gap when you have a 12-foot spear coming at you. But when it comes time to assassinating these high-ranking officials, they are bound to be wearing their swords. In fact, it would be nearly impossible for them not to be. So, samurai would typically only use their swords if they were thrown off their horse or their spears broke. But because you're going to be trying to take them by surprise, anticipate seeing swords, and a lot of them. After I think it was the Edo period in around the 700s, the Katana, or the curved sword, became the standard, and every sword thereafter was just a different version of the same thing. Now they measure Japanese swords in something called shaku. A shaku is a length of measurement that is similar to a foot, give or take. Now, I actually have some of them here, so I can show you. Very important, you know what to expect, and of course, you're going to be in training as well. It is important that you understand the length, the reach, and what these individuals can do with these weapons. This is the first one. This is a katana. Certainly one of the longest weapons that you'll encounter. They do have much longer swords than this. Bear in mind the average Japanese soldier was not very tall. So this katana would be around 2 to 3 shuka, which would be around 2 to 3 feet. So it would, or shaku, excuse me, it would be around 2/3 of their height already. You'll have lots of embellishments on the sword and the scabbard, designating particular clans. In fact, that's a good way to identify somebody, is particular emblems. Up at the top, should you find yourself without a sword, looking for a weapon and you see it on the ground, the grip is going to be wrapped. This is obviously a cheap training sword. The more expensive ones might have something like stingray leather or something up in here, but it's going to have a very similar grip. And this is what you're looking at. It is a curved sword. It's going to have multiple colors. Of course, this is actually going to be what is called a Damascus pattern, but you're going to have some sort of line up top from the quench, and that is called Haman. With these swords, they only quench one side of it, and the spine is going to remain soft, because if the entire thing is hard, as soon as you make contact with something that is also hard, it'll shatter. So this is the katana. Enough for 2 hands, perhaps even 2.5. Typical stance. Hand here and a hand here. And of course, we're going to be doing a lot of training with these swords. So for right now, the only real important thing is just being able to identify them. Now, as I stated, these samurai swords, they're all going to be different shaku lengths, but they're all going to be virtually the same design. And what we have up next is what you would think is a smaller katana, and it is. This is a Wakazashi. The exact same thing. The only difference being that this might be 1.5 to 2 shaku, or 1.5 to 2 feet. Now, you'll notice when you encounter a samurai wearing particularly ceremonial swords, which was pretty much the only thing that these swords were mostly used for, especially during times of arts and not war, that you would see people wearing in their belt. And when I say people, I mean samurai. The Katana and the Wakazashi together. Now, this was a sign of regality, nobility, to have a katana. However, what you're going to discover is that you're going to find a lot more Wakazashi than you are katana, for a couple reasons. The first reason is that katana were for samurai only. No one who was not a samurai could own katana. So you have a lot of people that would have Wakazashi because it's just a slightly smaller version of a katana, and they did not have to be a samurai to use it. But of course, you also have the practical implications. The katana was very large for smaller individuals, unwieldy, and one of the biggest detractors of a katana is wearing it everywhere. And you would wear your sword like this. You would take it with you everywhere. Some people, I think it was actually customary, depending on the time period, to remove your swords when you sat. But perhaps if you were just sitting quickly or in public, or maybe just didn't want to, or you wanted to be rude, you could leave them on. It is very difficult to sit with a full-length katana and a full-length wakizashi. So, a lot of people started carrying wakazashi instead of katana as well for that. And especially considering the fact it's mostly a ceremonial sword. As we said, the people you're going to run into are going to be using spears, hammers, distance weapons like bows and arrows. It just makes sense. So you're going to be focusing primarily on Wakazashi defense. Then we have our smallest Japanese sword. This is going to be called the Tanto. This is only about, I would say, 1 to 1.5 shaku, so 1 and 1.5 feet. Now, the Tanto is a blade that also could be subbed out for the Wakazashi. So, samurai might wear katana and Tanto. Samurai might wear katana and Wakazashi. Samurai might wear Wakazashi and Tanto. Any of those work. The Tanto was small enough that it could also be concealed. So you might also find some of those Geisha that you mentioned concealing a Tanto as well. A Tanto would be a very valuable thing to have in your belt, as you'll find when you are fighting people with spears. It often turns into hand-to-hand combat, so you'd be thrust to spear, getting close enough, wrestle him to the ground, pull out the Tanto, finish him off. This is very common. In fact, I would say this is the deadliest sword that you need to look out for, and so small. Something that you will undoubtedly anticipate and expect to see as well is something called seppuku or harikiri. It is a ritualistic suicide. It is for those who are disgraced to kill themselves to regain their honor or to save their honor. Regardless of what you've heard, most people do not want to take a Tanto and put it in themselves. I can tell you, I would not. So, it was not a commonplace, and despite what honor may dictate, it wasn't the thing that people wanted to do by any means. But, just looking out for you so you're not surprised when you see this, be on the lookout for the Tanto, I would say, above all else. Now, those are the swords, the main swords of the samurai. We don't need to go over the different shuriken and weapons that you'll be using here. My only job is to try to tell you what you're going to be up against. But your weapons instructor is going to train you on the different weapons you're going to use to kill the samurai. My advice to you, do everything you can to avoid engaging the samurai in hand-to-hand combat. Sneak up behind them, kill them while they don't even know that you're there. The samurai live and die from moments like ones that you might put them through. So, definitely be careful. Other than that, it is important to understand the culture, not to stand out and not to desynchronize yourself from your ancestors' memories. What does that mean? It means that when you are living as your ancestor, you need to do everything just as they would. If you see a Geisha, you need to act appropriately. If you see Rikishi, you need to act appropriately. You cannot, under any circumstances, act in a way that does not fit that culture and that setting, or else the Animus will kick you out, believing that you are not a good fit to be reliving the memories of your ancestor. It's very difficult to do anything after that point, so it's important that you remember these things that I'm telling you, even just as much as your weapons instructor. So, does that answer the things that you have seen and the things that you heard? Yeah. Voices. Yes, you heard voices crying to you. Well, this time frame is plagued with villagers mercilessly flayed by the warlord that you are going to be assassinating. So much punishment, death, and needless executions. Yes, well, this is the reason why we picked your ancestor above all the other ones, because they were the ones that could finally bring peace and shut the mouth of the angry ruler and the snake of the region. Well, I tell you what, I've pretty much been like drinking out of a fire hose. I've given you a lot of information. You've seen some things, you've tested the Animus. Why don't you take a break? Take the rest of the day. Go take a well-earned nap. We can always pick up at a later time. Of course, next time you're here, we'll plug you back into the Animus. I'm sure you're going to see some other things, and I'm sure I'll have to give some explanations. It's not a problem. I'm here to help you. We're going to get you synchronized, and we're going to better understand don't need you to pass out while you're in. Thank you, Mom. Funny, funny. Okay, go rest up, and I'll see you soon. I'm just gonna work on some more dioramas, print out some things to show you for next time.